Dear Mr. President, Mr. Governor, Mr. Mayor, let me start with a special thanks to you, and if I can, a special personal thanks to the Mayor of Bruges for having made this possible. Chers étudiants, c'est avec un sentiment d'émotion profonde que je m'adresse à vous ce soir pour la cérémonie d'ouverture de l'année académique de la promotion Mário Soares. C'est votre promotion, c'est votre chance de vivre une expérience unique, inoubliable, qui va vous accompagner pour le reste de votre vie. Et pour moi, c'est ma première promotion, qui va aussi rester pour toujours dans mon cœur. Mais il y a une autre raison spéciale pour laquelle nous partageons ici, dans cette salle magnifique, ce soir, un sentiment d'émotion. C'est lié à la présence du président du Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, qui nous fait l'honneur d'être ici avec nous, dans un moment si difficile pour tous nos pays, pour l'Europe et le monde entier. Et je veux le remercier énormément pour ça, au nom du Collège et de vous tous. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Before I give the floor to the President for his keynote speech, let me introduce our patron de promotion, Mário Soares. That needs no introduction, but still I will explain this is my role tonight. And for once you will not me here saying something about COVID. I subscribe every single word that the mayor did, so for tonight I will not mention the word COVID. But I will come back tomorrow on this. The man, Mário Soares, the politician, the fighter, the winner. The hero of Portuguese democracy and freedom that has spent all his energy and talent from his very early years in university to put an end to dictatorship, but also to prevent the radicalization of the revolution, and then to bring his country into the European integration process. Ready to pay the price of unconventional revolutionary choices with prison, deportation, exile. Ready to restart the fight every time, even when the difficulties appeared immense. Always guided by his values that for him, historian, lawyer, were the constant and creative update of the fundamental principles of humanism. Freedom, equality, justice, pluralism, human rights, peace and international cooperation. He has been founder and Secretary General of the Portuguese Socialist Party, Vice President of the Social International, with strong political and personal ties with leaders like François Mitterrand, Olof Palme, Willy Brandt, just to mention a few, a great generation. He has been Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister, President. He has been the engine of the 3Ds policy of his country: democratization, decolonization, development. He signed the request of accession to, at the time, European communities in 1977, and then concluded himself the negotiations, signing the accession treaty in 1985. He understood that bringing Portugal into the European integration process was the best way to guarantee that democracy and freedom became irreversible achievements for his country and his people. And at the same time, he never stopped fighting for democracy and freedom also in Europe. For him, being a convinced European and being critical towards the shortcomings of the European integration project were not contradicting elements, on the contrary. Being a proud European implied for him the constant search for a better Europe. Member of the European Parliament from 1999 to 2004, President of the European Movement International, he has always believed in and worked for a Europe of values and solidarity. An idealist, constantly aspiring to a better future for his country, Europe, and the world. And yet, a realist, extremely aware of the conditions needed to put in place the changes he was dreaming of. If you allow me to use Gramsci's words, that for sure he would have used, he had the pessimism of reason and the optimism of the will. Or rather, I would say, because he was definitely not a pessimist, the lucidity of reason and the determination of the will. His wife writes that in 1975, when the revolution that put an end to dictatorship was turning into a radicalization that was very far away from the dreams of democracy and freedom that had animated Soares and with him many others, during those months, she used to tell him every morning that the situation was not the one they had been fighting for all their lives, and that she was really desperate. And she writes that he replied, "No, we are still fighting, and we are winning." And indeed, they won, because they never gave up, with lucidity, determination, and hope. There is an anecdote that helps understanding the personality of Mário Soares more than 1,000 words. And we have tonight the privilege of listening to this very short story in the words of a great Portuguese, a great European, a citizen of the world, for me also a good friend, that knew Mário Soares well and that has accepted immediately our invitation to share with us his memories of him. It is a pleasure for me to introduce to you the message that António Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations and former Prime Minister of Portugal, has addressed to you, to the opening ceremony of the Mário Soares promotion of the College of Europe.
Dear Federica Mogherini, dear students and faculty members of the Colégio da Europa, it is a pleasure to say a few words to you about my countryman Mário Soares, a great public servant, political leader, and European. Mário Soares was instrumental in establishing democracy, freedom, and respect for fundamental rights in Portugal, and his legacy in my country is assured. But his vision and contribution went far beyond Portugal. Mário Soares was a proud European who believed in European values, European unity, and Europeans' role on the world stage. He saw Europe as a project of peace, prosperity, and freedom. Looking back, Portugal's integration into European institutions may seem inevitable. At the time, it was not. I was privileged to attend one particular meeting immediately after the 1974 revolution, when Mário Soares was the leader of the Portuguese Socialist Party, and he had convened several prominent economists to talk about the implications of a possible accession to the European Economic Community. The economists spoke cautiously, one after the other, talking about the serious problems and obstacles and discouraging early accession. Closing the meeting, Mário Soares told them, "No, you are wrong. Let me tell you what will happen. Portugal must join Europe, and the sooner the better." And indeed, as Prime Minister, Mário Soares steered Portugal towards entry into the European Economic Community and later signed the accession treaty. Mário Soares' beliefs were rooted in the values he pursued throughout his life: freedom and democracy. He paid the full price for those values in arrests, imprisonment, and exile when he was young. Today, we need to continue the fight for those values in Europe and around the world. Unending wars and horrific violations of human rights are forcing millions of people from their homes. Hate speech and xenophobia are on the rise. The climate crisis, growing inequalities, and the rise of digital technology create new dangers. We are now battling a global pandemic that has killed 1 million people and thrown societies and economies into turmoil. European solidarity and unity, and the Enlightenment values of rationality, tolerance, and dialogue are more important than ever. You, young Europeans, will carry the torch for Europe in the world. You have an important part to play in setting a course towards a better future. I hope you'll find inspiration in the example of Mário Soares. I know you would be honored to be remembered in this way by the Colégio da Europa. Thank you, and I wish you all the very best for your studies.
I think you're the first promotion being addressed by the Secretary General of the United Nations. Keep that in mind and make Bruges proud of you. But let me underline something that Antonio Guterres tells in this short message. He says, looking back, Portugal's integration into European institutions may seem inevitable. At the time, it was not. Please take a moment to focus on this sentence and what it means. Imagine the scene, imagine the economists convened by Mário Soares at the time, the mid of the 70s, cautiously advising against early accession of Portugal to the European community, and imagine Mário Soares closing the meeting by telling them that no, Portugal would have joined, and the sooner the better. Guterres always told me that there is a difference between being in power and having the power. And I'm sure I had, now that I heard him telling this story, I'm sure that he had this in mind. If you are in a position to take decisions, use it. Don't waste it. Do what you think is right. Sometimes what you believe is the right thing to do seems impossible to achieve. Sometimes it seems unreal, weird, unlikely to happen, unpopular, against the mood of your times. Sometimes everybody around you warn that you are going to fail. You are putting all your energies into a dream, a lost case. They advise to aim at something easier, more realistic, more possible. But change doesn't happen without someone that makes it happen. And that might be you. Because even the impossible can turn real. As Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. To make it happen, you need the courage and the lucidity that Mário Soares had. The capacity to do not what is easier to achieve, but what you believe is right. Democracy for your country, human rights for all, the unity of Europe, overcoming colonialism. These are only some of the fights that Mário Soares chose to win. And I have no doubt that many around him, starting from those economists, had warned him about the price to pay, a very high price, and the risk of failure. Why should you go there? Why should you risk to lose? You will hit the wall. They must have told him so, and he did indeed hit the wall for some time, hard times. But he must have thought that the real failure would have been for him giving up to what he believed was the right thing to do, his principles, his values. And he made it. He won. With him, Portugal won and Europe won. I wish you the strength and the courage to follow what your heart and mind tell you is right. Don't ever make a step back because of fear to fail, or you will have failed already. There are fights that are worth fighting, no matter what the mood of the time is, no matter how little chances you have to make it. There are some imperative choices you have to allow yourself the luxury to make. And this is what determines who you are. Some generations live evident determining choices. And Mário Soares clearly belonged to one of those generations, called to make history. But every generation has its own chance to be on the right side of history. Yours as well. Don't ever forget it. Do what is right, not what is easier. And you might one day say, as Soares does in one of the last interviews he gave, j'ai eu alors le sentiment profond de pouvoir accomplir ce qui devait être fait. Before I conclude, let me share with you a very short personal anecdote. The very first choice I was called to make, as soon as I was appointed rector last spring, was not choosing the patron de promotion that was already chosen, and no better choice could have been made, but I had to choose the photo that would have accompanied this promotion. And after long talks, the college team and our Portuguese friends that are here with us in the room, and I thank them for being that, they came up with two options, both very telling of the personality of Mário Soares. The first one was him giving a public speech, I think in '75, with a lot of energy and even anger, Mário Soares, the fighter. And the second one is the one you see behind me, Mário Soares, the winner, smiling, confident, a very soft image. It's Mário Soares, the man, the smiling man. His daughter Isabel said of him, I quote, "He loves people. He gives everyone his personal telephone number. He talks to everyone. He is a very curious man, and he enjoys hearing funny stories. He is also a good storyteller himself. He is an ordinary man, a simple man. He loves beauty and style. He has a strong feeling for color. He knows that he has no time for that, but sometimes he becomes sentimental about it, just for a brief moment, and then it's over." That photo, I think, captures that moment, the man, the ordinary, sentimental, smiling man. And I wanted you to be accompanied this year, this difficult year, by an image of happiness and gratitude, to remind you that even in the most difficult of times, you can smile, and that a smile is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Only if you're strong, you can afford it and show the human being beyond the public figure. In a time when everybody seems to identify toughness with strength, that photo is there to remind you that real strength doesn't need toughness. Real strength is based on understanding, listening, and empathy. It takes much more courage to smile sometimes than to shout louder. You can be strong and soft. You can be strong and smile. May the strength and the smile of Mário Soares accompany you during these 10 exciting, challenging, extraordinary months at the College of Europe, in Bruges and in Natolin. And from here, from the moment when you enter this unique community of the College of Europe, may your life be full of happiness, empathy, and success in accomplishing what you believe is right. Thank you. Thank you.